Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video I'm going to be going through and showing you my current approach to scanning black and white film. Before we get into that, I just want to do a quick channel update. For those of you who are subscribed to my channel, you'll be pleased to know that my new camera has arrived, and I'm pleased to let you know that it is a Hasselblad 503CW. I'm very excited to receive this camera. It's a beautiful camera. I just want to say thank you once again to Darryl Carey for helping me make this choice, and if you would like to see his review of this camera, I will leave a link for you to check that out. So I only received this a couple of weeks ago. I haven't used it yet. It came with an 80mm lens and a 150mm lens, and I have a 50mm lens on the way and a 90-degree viewfinder. My back operation is next week on Wednesday. Very excited to get that out of the way. I've been suffering for quite some time with that. It does mean that I'm not going to be able to get out shooting straight away. There's going to be a few weeks of recovery, so I'm kind of looking at maybe 3 to 4 weeks, and I might be able to get out there with this new camera and do some vlogging, so I'm quite excited about that. So I just want to take the opportunity to update you on a couple of videos that I've got coming out in the future. The first one is scanning colour negative film. The second one is scanning with a DSLR instead of a flatbed scanner. And the third one is what's in my bag. Once the rest of my equipment arrives, I'm going to do an overview of what's in my camera bag from a film landscape photography perspective. So if you're quite keen to see any of those videos, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel and you'll be notified when they are released. So scanning black and white film. If you want to scan some black and white film or any other film, you're going to need some equipment. The first thing you're going to need is a scanner. And my scanner of choice is an Epson V800 flatbed scanner. You're going to need some software to run on your computer. And my software of choice is Silverfast, and that runs great on my iMac. You're also going to need some accessories. And the accessories that I use are a rocket blower, and then I have some tweezers for handling the film, and I also have some cotton gloves, some fine cotton gloves that you can buy from your art store. You can also buy these from an art store. I'll leave a link to where you can buy this rocket blower in the description down below. And I'll also leave links in the description down below for where you can look at the scanner and the software. So I already have my film loaded into my film holder, and it's already in the scanner ready to go. It's Ilford Delta 100, and I have two 6x7 negatives from my previously owned Mamiya 7. When I was loading the film into the film holder, I took extra special care with my rocket blower to make sure that I removed as much visible dust as possible from the negative itself, both sides, the film holder, both sides, and also the glass on the flatbed scanner. To make sure that I had installed the film correctly in the holder, I always make sure I can read the writing, and then that just lets me know that I installed correctly. And the film's in there ready to go, so now let's get into my computer and start scanning some black and white film. So here we have Silverfast AI Studio, and if you haven't used Silverfast before, then what happens when you open it up every time, it remembers the previous settings from your last scan. And it just so happens that I conveniently scanned black and white film during my last scanning session. But let's say, for example, you weren't scanning black and white film and you were scanning colour film or slide film, then you'd need to change the settings of the interface so that you're able to scan black and white film. And where you do that is up at the top here. There's an option to choose positive or negative, and you can choose the bit depth. Obviously I've set mine on negative, and the bit depth is 16-bit for black and white, and that puts us in the right settings to start scanning black and white film. So once we have the software set up to scan black and white film, we can go ahead and do a pre-scan. Now the scanner will take a few minutes to do this, so I'll fast forward this section. So the scanner's finished doing its pre-scan, and the next thing we do is orientate the images to how we would expect to see them. So as you can see, there are two images and there are two outlines that we use these to define the boundaries of the scan. So we'll go ahead and adjust these to suit the 6x7 format. And it's pretty simple to do. You just drag them and then move them. And it's quite important that you don't include any of the edge of the frame, any of the black. And don't worry too much because you can refine this further in a second. That'll do. So as you can see on the left here, as I click on each box, it changes slightly. So you're able to make changes for one side and then move over to the other side, and the settings are completely different. So I think for the purpose of this video, we'll try and scan this one. So it's done a pre-scan. The next thing we do is click on the zoom in, and the scanner will go ahead and do a more detailed scan. And this will take some time, so I'll fast forward this section again. So now the scanner has finished a more detailed scan, we can go ahead and refine the boundaries of the image again further to be more accurate. So at this point I will just edge them out, and I would make sure that I'm not encroaching on the black film. If you need to adjust for angle, you can do that by grabbing this point here and rotating it. So I think that looks pretty good. I'm just going to rotate it a little bit. About there looks good. So now we can go ahead and start setting up the software to do a full scan. So the first thing we have here is the scan dimensions, and the first thing we do is put in the film name. And we want to save it in TIFF format. So the objective here is to set it up so that I can export it and then upload it into Lightroom or Photoshop, and TIFF format is the best format to do that. You can decide where you want to save it. I'm going to save mine on my desktop. We've already set the boundaries of the frame. This is the format, so it's custom because we've dragged it into position. So 300 pixels per inch is the recommended quality. I wouldn't go any higher than that. You could probably scan it at a less quality. I guess it really comes down to what you're going to do with the image. And in terms of the pixel per inch output, I wouldn't go any higher than 2400. And as you can see already at this setting, the file size is going to be nearly 69 megabits. So that's now set up correctly for how I like it, and then we'll move down through the settings, and here we have the density meter. And the only thing I change here is the bit depth. I change that to 16-bit just to make sure we get a good grayscale when we're doing the scan. So the next thing we have is Negafix. This is one of the strengths of using Silverfast, particularly for black and white and colour negative film. Silverfast already has a number of different manufacturers and film types at different speeds loaded into the software. And once you've scanned your film into the software, you're able to go in and apply a setting that's suitable to that film, and it just adjusts the colours. So we'll go ahead and find ours for this one, and it's Delta 100. That's it, and as you can see the image has changed slightly. This is to remove colour cast, not really relevant for black and white film. And here you can adjust the exposure and tolerances if you wish to. I would probably come back to these later. So there's some more things we can adjust, and as you can see at the top here we have a histogram, so we're going to add that. At this point now I would set my black point and white point, and we do that by dragging these sliders here across just to the edge of the histogram, and the white is already set. We'll just bring that down slightly like that. And then we can adjust the midtones. So this is really now preference to how you set this. I just slide it around a little bit and just see how I like it at different strengths that I tend to quite like. You know, really contrasty look, so I'll move it in this instance to more of a darker midtone just to get a bit more contrast. Around about there looks good. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is add a couple of features that are going to help with the sharpness of the image and also help remove some scratch and dust that could potentially be in there. So as you can see here, there's a toolbar, and in here we can find an unsharp mask. This helps with sharpening, so we'll go ahead and click on it to add that. Now when it comes to scratch and dust removal, there are two settings that we can use. Now the first one here, ISRD, uses an infrared sensor, and you can only use this on colour negative and slide film. Unfortunately, black and white film, the composite within the film, actually blocks the infrared light. So Silverfast came up with another approach which basically evaluates the image and detects artifacts in the image. So we'll click on SRDX. So before we start adjusting these settings, it's good just to have a look around the image, and we can see that there's some slight visible grain, and there's also some white artifacts that we can see in the sky and also in the sea. So with the sharpening mask, I have mine set to 220 typically, and the radius to 2.0. And because we can see some grain in here, I'm going to bring the threshold up to 10, and that's just going to help stop sharpening some of the grain. So now we can move on to the dust and scratch removal tool. Because of the way that this tool works, it requires a bit more manual labour to get it to work how you want it to do. The infrared one's much easier, it just scans and it just removes artifacts. With this one, it can try and remove artifacts that you don't want removing. For example, as we can see in the middle here, we've got this rock. It could quite easily detect things in here, which would then spend quite a lot of time trying to adjust this feature and wouldn't actually achieve what we want to achieve, we'd just be wasting time. So what we have the ability to do here is add some masks. So basically what we can do, we can define an area within the image that we want to apply scratch and dust removal tool. So we go ahead and click on this pen and we're able to draw an area around here so we can apply the scratch and dust removal. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. You basically just click on the image and then you just click wherever you want it to snap to, and you just go around and do this throughout the image. So I'm going to do this right around the image, so I'll fast forward this section because it'll probably take a few minutes. So once we've gone around the rock, so we go around the edges just to define the edges, and then we come back to the first one and click on that, and it'll ask us to name the mask, so we'll do that. And there we go, we have our mask. So now we're going to go ahead and do a preview. And we do that by clicking on this button here. And the scanner will do a scan, and this will take some time, so I'll fast forward this section again. Okay, so the scanner has finished doing its pre-scan, and as you can see, the image is looking a lot sharper. Just want to mention quickly that this mask doesn't affect the sharpening tool. This is purely for the dust and scratch removal tool. So now we need to adjust the dust and scratch removal tool more. So at this point I will move this to an area where there is visible dust, like this point here. And as you can see, there's some white artifacts that we can see. So when we go over to the dust and scratch removal tool, we click bright artifacts, which I already have selected. And then when we click on the mode, we want to highlight the artifacts in the image. And when we highlight them, they will be red. The next thing we do is take a mental note of the actual size of these artifacts. They're not big and they're not small either, so I will move that up kind of like to midway, and then because they're quite small, there's quite a bit of detection that's going to be required, so I'll bring that up quite a bit as well. So that's pretty close. You'll notice that every time you adjust these settings, the preview regenerates, and depending on the speed of your computer, that'll take some time. So as you can see here, there's a few other little artifacts that it's not picking up, but it's picked up some of these bigger ones. So I'm going to increase the detection a little bit to say 14, and hopefully it'll pick up these other artifacts. And that's picked those up. But as you can see from these red dots, there's a few little speckles around the edge, and that's not the end of the world. If it was worse, then we'd play around with the settings even more when we go to the correct mode here. So this will apply how the image will look when it's finally scanned, so we can go ahead and preview that. So as you can see, it's removed those dust marks and it doesn't actually look that bad. In fact, it looks good. So we'll just move it back to mark, and then we'll move the preview around the image and just look at some other areas just to make sure that we've picked everything up. As we move it, it reloads. It's quite annoying, it's a bit slow. You know, my machine has got, I think, 32 gigabyte of RAM, and it still takes quite a bit of time to do this. So you can see here there's just a few other little ones. So I'm just going to increase the detection a little bit. Just go up to 15. Doesn't take much. See, that's too much. But if I reduce the tile size, I don't think so. So we'll move the tile size back, and then we'll reduce the detection down to 14. Yeah, look, I think that's much better. To be honest, if some of these were bugging me, I will probably just address them in Lightroom. At least Silverfast has taken care of most of it. We'll just keep going around the image just to see what it's been doing. Yep, so it's picked up those. Yep. See, there's a couple little ones here that I would just do that in Lightroom, and then we'll go over the actual rock and just to make sure that it's not picking anything up there. Yep, and as you can see, the mask is doing its job. So in terms of scanning with Silverfast, this is as far as I would take it. To come out of the preview mode, press that button there, and that returns you to the full view mode. It doesn't give you the preview anymore, so you will still see these white blobs around, these white artifacts, but when you scan it, they will be removed. So I've finished now here in Silverfast, so I'm going to go ahead and press scan. This will take some time, so I'll fast forward this section while the scanner does its thing. And the Silverfast has finished, and on our desktop we should have the image, and here it is. We can preview that, and as you can see, all those white artifacts have gone. It's looking very sharp. There's a few little specks down here, but overall it's looking pretty good. There's one there. These are easily manageable in Lightroom. So what we have is an exported TIFF file that's about 60 megabytes, and now I would store this wherever I store my images and then upload it into Lightroom or Photoshop for further post-processing. So that's a brief overview of my approach to scanning black and white film. I went on to upload it into Lightroom, made a couple of changes, just cropped it a little bit and adjusted the contrast a little bit, and then exported it, and I'll put it up on the screen now to show you. So I hope you enjoy that image as much as I do. You know, Ilford Delta 100 is a fantastic film stock, and taking on the Mamiya 7, which is a fantastic camera, and Silverfast has done a fantastic job of the scanning. So we're heading towards the end of this video today, but before we finish up, I just want to quickly say a big thank you to one of my subscribers in Germany for requesting this video. I hope it has helped you with scanning black and white film. And yeah, please subscribe to my channel and check out my Facebook page and Instagram page if you want to see some more of my content or be notified when I upload a video. So that's it for today's video. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. Bye for now.